Hey there, welcome back to the Purposeful Pen. So, this week we are talking about podcasting on the podcast. So, last week we were talking about public speaking as a way to grow your audience and grow your platform that doesn't use social media and honestly has a much better return on your investment than social media does anyway. So, and that is great. And if you want to pursue that, you should. However, for some, public speaking has a lot of obstacles. Like it could involve travel, depending on how far outside your radius of your home you want to go. It can take time and effort to kind of build up your speaking repertoire to the point where you can be booked with other places so that you can have those speaking opportunities. And sometimes it's just really intimidating to stand up in front of a crowd. So, for some, that's just too many roadblocks. So, podcasting for many people can be the next best thing. So, it still has a good return on investment, not quite to the level of public speaking, but your audience still gets to really know you better. They get to hear your tone of voice. It's an opportunity to explore different aspects of your message and can still be a great way to get your message out there to different parts of your audience. So, to get started, first, like with any of our other writing, if you're starting a blog or if you're speaking or if you're doing anything else with writing, you want to get clear on who it is that you're helping and how you help them. Who is this podcast for? Who is the ideal audience? Who's the one who's going to benefit from it? And how are you helping them? Why would they listen? So you need to be really clear on that. What I am not going to cover in this is all of the nuts and bolts tech things of how to get started with a podcast. There is a lot of information out there about creating a good title and a thumbnail image and what type of microphone and editing software to use and all of those sorts of things. Google has it all out there. You can look into those things on your own. I will say that the only piece of equipment that I invested in to start my podcast was an $80 microphone. And I host my podcast on Substack, which is free. And then once I set it up initially, it automatically pushes my episodes out to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all of the places. So it does all that for me, and I don't have to pay for it. So there's that. I also use a software called Audacity, which is also free, to record my solo episodes in, and I use Zoom, which I do pay for my interview episodes, record them on Zoom, and then just use the audio portion of that for the podcast episode, which I edit in Audacity. Now, when I first started, I did very little editing because I had no idea how to do it. So if I messed up, I just started over again. However, I have learned a lot about how to edit. It's actually not bad, just editing the audio. So I've learned a lot about how to do that. It's not too bad, and I do that within Audacity, which works quite well. So, how does podcasting help to grow your audience? Well, it gets your message out there to a different section of your audience, assuming that they listen to podcasts, which so many people do. As I mentioned earlier, you can show your audience more of your personality. They can hear your tone of voice and really get to know you better and come to trust you. In each episode, you can mention a download or some other resource that you make available to them that relates to that episode. And if the URL is simple enough, you can speak it into the podcast so that afterwards they don't have to go searching for the show notes to find the link, but they can just type that in themselves. If you do at least some guest episodes, you will be drawing from your guest's audience as well as your own. So when the guest mentions the interview to his or her audience, they may come over then and start listening to your podcast so you can gain more listeners that way. So there are some other things that I have learned along the way. First of all, episodes do not have to be long. If you listen to my episode, you know that most of the solo episodes are really short. And at first I was very concerned about this. I'm like, oh, they're not long enough. This isn't okay. Until I started getting comments and reactions from my listeners thanking me for the short episodes. They're like, oh, you pack all this information in this short period of time. I can listen while I'm folding my laundry or go to the gym or whatever it is they're doing. So short is okay. It is okay. Secondly, yes, you should be consistent, but you get to decide what consistency looks like. This was one of my biggest concerns when I was first starting. Like, can I pull off putting out a new episode every single week? So I was nervous about that. And so in the beginning, I'm like, okay, I am just going to put out an episode every other week as I kind of test the waters and figure out if this is something that I can sustain. So I did that for about 5 months. Then I was like, okay, I can do this. And so I switched to posting an episode every week. Did that for a couple of years. And then just recently, I followed the lead of another podcaster I know who does 3 months on, 1 month off throughout the year. And I love that. That has been great because it allows each one of those 3-month segments is a different series. It keeps it all contained. And then I have a month to kind of work on other projects or do planning and such for the upcoming episodes. It also allows for the natural flux in my own schedule, my own life. You know, the months I take off are months that tend to be busier for me anyway. And so it works really well. And so whatever you decide is consistency, just communicate that to your listeners and then they will know what to expect. But you get to decide that. The other benefit to podcasting is that the episodes don't go anywhere. They become this evergreen resource that you have available. So if you know, someone's asking you a question about something and you did a podcast episode on that, you can refer them to that episode. It's always there. It's like a library of resources that you are building over time to help your reader. So, what do you think? Would starting a podcast be the next right step for you, the next way to grow your audience and serve them? So if you have specific questions about podcasting, I would be happy to answer them. If you are a subscriber on Substack, you can just comment on the episode and I will answer those. Or you can also email me at amysimon@amylynsimon.com.